I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Friday, February 6th, 2026, and we've got a great conversation ahead for you today. We want to invite you, wherever you are or however you're connecting, to share that this conversation is happening right now with your friends and your networks. Let's bring some more people into the conversation. We call Friday the Healing Circle, and we produce the Friday program in conjunction with the African American Child Wellness Institute. Thanks to Lisa Bryant for curating the series on health and mental health. And we're pleased to always be in the company and under the leadership of Dr. Oliver Williams and Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya, who guide our journey into the examination of what it means to be healthy, to be violence-free, to have responses and strategies that grow us individually, collectively, as families and as communities. Dr. Williams, let me say hello to you, first of all. Good to see you again, my friend, as always. And how are you doing?
I'm hanging in there, man.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to do two things today. One is begin our program by presenting and speaking with our special guest, Dr. Manka Nkembing. And then we're going to also morph into looking at local community affairs issues. We've got a number of guests in the studio and coming who are going to be talking about activities this week about leadership. There's an emergency leadership event happening tomorrow and Sunday. We want you to be aware of it. But we want you also to be generally engaged in examining where we are in community here in Twin Cities, given the invasion by our federal government with the ICE troopers and their move against immigrant communities, which I think is a move against Black and brown bodies, period. That's just the first line. And we've got to talk about that, what it means and what we do. How do we protect and preserve it? So if you're listening on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, send a post out or a tweet out to all of your networks, asking them to join this conversation. If you're listening and want to be on the conversation, we'll have a QR code on the screen, and you can just click on that and it will see you. And chances are we can invite you into the conversation as well. There it is. Well, let me begin by bringing in Dr. Manka Nkembing. Dr. Manka Nkembing, PhD, MPH-RN, is an Associate Director of Equity and Community Engagement for the Center for Healthy Aging and Innovation at University of Minnesota. She's also an Assistant Professor in the School of Public Health and a Bush Fellow 2024-2026. She is from Cameroon. And she has researched and created the African Immigrant Memory Loss Project, which was designed to understand the dementia care experiences, needs, and resources among African immigrants. And this is a timely conversation, Dr. Nkembing, because we've been talking about dementia and forms of Alzheimer's in the Black community over the past several weeks. And this is a deeper dive into the impact, the experience of the African immigrant community with the principles I'm sure affect and address all of us and all of our concerns. So welcome to the program. Thank you for being here. Describe your work, if you would, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Al. Hello, Dr. Oliver. So the work that I do around dementia primarily is really working with community to develop and adapt solutions for community. So in relation to dementia, what happened is that we're approached by a community-based organization to support them in understanding what was really happening with dementia in the African immigrant community. So we heard stories from them saying that there were some things that were happening. People were locking up parents in the homes. People were not taking them out to places. And that's because they were having some symptoms of memory loss and different types of dementia. And so they brought us in. We did a needs and assets assessment. Again, the approach we take to our work is that we don't just think it's all needs. We think the community is able to the community has assets, and so they're able to leverage those assets. So we're looking at the needs, we're looking at the assets. And so we did that with our community partner. One of the first needs that came up was the need for dementia education for the community. And so we pivoted, worked again with that same community partner to develop a culturally appropriate dementia education program and booklet that we're now disseminating in the community to educate and conduct outreach around dementia for the community.
So, what do we need to know about dementia in the African and African American, African immigrant community? What do Black people need to know about dementia? How have we handled that challenge, that medical challenge, historically, in our culture? And what do we know differently now? And where do we go in the future in terms of being responsible and providing best practices for caregivers and for those who need the care?
That's a big question. So a couple of things that come to mind. The very first thing is that a lot of us do not know, when it comes to the immigrants, many of them had not heard the word dementia before migrating to the US. And then when it comes to the people who are born in the US, they also do not understand the symptoms. And so even if they're seeing the symptoms, they do not know about it. I know on one of the episodes you had Nasise from the Alzheimer's Association, and she was talking about the 10 warning signs. That's a very good thing for everybody in the community to know, really good understanding of what are those warning signs, because that's what is important. What we find in the greater Black immigrant, Black community, including African immigrants and descendants of slaves in the US, is that broadly, we are 2 times more likely to be diagnosed with dementia. And that's problematic. The second thing is that we're diagnosed late in the disease process because we're not picking up the signs and symptoms. The third thing is that because we are a community broadly that loves to care for our loved ones by ourselves, we're doing it in the home and we're doing it with family members. And so we're not going out to seek the supports and services that are available to support caregivers in the community. And so because of all of those things, we're finding out that the burden now, I also hesitate to call it a burden, but the challenge of supporting someone living with dementia, it's really hard for the Black immigrant community because of our desire to want to care for them in the home and then not being able to access or go access the resources that we need. So a couple of key things that I say is make sure that we pay attention to the signs and symptoms so that we get in to go get diagnosed early. And now that we're talking about disease modifying treatments, the critical thing in accessing those is getting diagnosed early. So if you know the signs and symptoms, if you know the 10 warning signs, then you're able to pick it up, and a family member and a family friend and a grandparent or whoever it is that you're engaging with, you can pick up if they're having memory loss, you can pick up if their mood is changing, and you're able to tell them or their family member that you might want to get this person in to get diagnosed. And then the other thing I say is that if you're supporting someone living with dementia, make sure that you pause and think about, am I taking care of myself as well? Mm-hmm. Because to be able to do that for a condition like dementia that is progressing long-term, you as a care partner or as a family member want to also be able to stay healthy because you need to be healthy to do that.
So I'm going to ask you to sort of review the 10 warning signs so people have that top of mind. But I wanted to ask you first, in history and in African culture, how would the question of what we now call dementia have been perceived and responded to in our traditional systems? I know they may differ all over, the diaspora, but what do you think? What generalizations can you make?
Oh, that's a great question. So when it comes to symptoms of dementia, like I had mentioned that the immigrants never heard the terminology before they migrated to the US, and most of them heard the terminology when they started working in the healthcare field when they came to the US, and so they heard the terminology. But what we found in our community conversations is that people would be like, oh, but I remember that this grandma in the village used to have some of these symptoms, and we thought it was witchcraft, we thought it was some other thing. And it's normal. What we don't know, we typically try to ascribe something to it. And if it's something that we do not have the medical terminology, oftentimes it gets to the spiritual, witchcraft, because depending on what religious belief you are, it's Allah's will, it's God's will, whatever spiritual inclination you have. So you now begin to ascribe that to it. But what we think is that those symptoms exist. And so the critical thing in thinking about the symptoms is that you want to pay attention to what is new So in diagnosing dementia and in paying attention to the symptoms, is always picking up what has changed. So a good example that I have heard happen a lot for the African immigrant communities, grandma used to be able to walk around the house or around the neighborhood all the time. But before you know it, when they start having cognitive impairment, they keep getting lost, and it's the police that is bringing them. So now that is a change from their normal routine. The other thing that I hear a lot of, the cooking changes. They start cooking and putting too much salt because they forgot that they had put salt before. So the key is to pay attention to what is changing. And because many of these changes are very subtle, you really have to be aware and notice when they start happening so that you can get care. So it's really paying attention not to what the person grew up doing all of their lives, because there's some of our relatives and family members that we might call them quirky or might have different types of challenges from birth. That's not what we're talking about when it comes to cognitive impairment related to Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementias. This often happens in a change in the personality as we go along.
And so you mentioned that we used to keep people at home, but that's what's changing now. And maybe there are tools and resources that allow us to be more effective keeping and caring for people at home. What are the specific resources we should be really, really, really focused on? My experience is that too often knowledge and awareness of resources is withheld, either intentionally or not, from our community. And so where there may be solutions and strategies and processes that the white public uses and takes for granted, we often are not and do not have the same access and facility. That's a layman's analysis. It may not be what you would have discovered in your research from your scientific point of view. But what do you think? How do we ensure that our people have the knowledge and have access to and utilize with comfort and confidence resources that are available?
Ooh, that's big. So there is the resource that is available. Just let's take in the abstract. Then there's where it is. And then there's who is supporting people to get the resources. So who is delivering the resources? And then there's what language it is in. And then there's kind of what is the culture within that system. And so it could be that something is available, but it's still not accessible. And oftentimes it's not accessible to many racial and ethnic minority groups or inclusive, because the transportation to that place might not be available for a lot. The language that is being offered and might not be in a language that the people speak. The schedule that is available for, it could be available 9 to 5. But if you have a family that works shift work, it might be challenging to access. Or it might be offered by a provider, let's say, take our Muslim brothers and sisters. It might be offered by a male, and depending on the faith beliefs, a woman cannot access it. So it's really beginning to think about how do we ensure that a resource meets the needs of the community that the resource is intended for. And that's a lot of the work that we do around culturally appropriate interventions. When we think about culturally appropriate interventions, is that the packet of the intervention looks like the community that we're developing for. The person that is developing it might come from that community. If they don't come from that community, it's culturally aware and can practice cultural humility to engage a culturally appropriate ways with that community. And then the system that intervention is placed in recognizes the cultural needs of the community. So some systems have places of prayer, some systems have churches, all of those things that really are saying that we welcome persons from this faith to come to us, welcome persons from this culture to come to us. And it's all of those things that make a resource accessible to people. So just having the resource on its own might not be accessible to a lot of people. And so we typically talk to health systems, we talk to providers to ensure that they're not just checking the box that we have this thing, but they're really taking a deeper dive to understand that that resource is able to meet the needs of the people that they're serving.
How do
I'm going
you?
to bring a couple of more voices. And Dr. Oliver, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask the question. So there can be different languages depending on which immigrant African community you're coming from. So how do you get access to those languages? I know you would do an assessment. Now, if you did the assessment, do you go from community to community, or is there um, a place where someone could come to your organization and you can list the organization that you're talking about, but to be able to get the supports that they need with regard to language, how would you manage that?
That's a great question, and it depends. So, in all of the work that we do, I'm a community based participatory researcher, which means I partner with the community and community organizations to develop interventions. So, an example is the memory and dementia education program that we created. When we're creating it, we recognize that not everyone speaks English, but our community advisory board told us that in English. So we developed it in English, pilot tested in English, and now we've translated it into 3 primary languages. And our goal is to continue ensuring that we are able to translate it into more languages so there's access to more communities. So the goal is really to talk to the members of the community that have to receive that service, to check in. If you're able to do at one time meet all of the language needs, but we know with limited funding, that's often a challenge. So it's often, let's have a conversation with the community to think about where do we start and how do we proceed in a way that we're meeting the community at its where they are, and also leveraging those resources. For us, many people learn the dementia education in English and then they take it and they interpret it for their family members, or a lot of them have actually called people back home in Africa to educate them on the signs and symptoms in their languages, but we were able to offer the education to them in English.
Very good.
Dr. Manka, how do people connect with you, or where is there a website people should be directed to find out more about your work and about us and dementia?
Yes. So one of the biggest resources we point people to is the Alzheimer's Association website. Have lots and lots of resources, and I want to recommend the 24/7 helpline. That resource is very, very, very important for our community. You call them and they can offer resources in your neighborhood. And I'm a faculty member at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. So if you just go there and type my last name, my page will come up and my contact information will come up, and I'll be more than happy to chat with anyone who is available to chat with me.
Awesome. Listen, hang out with us. We're going to move the conversation into other areas, but I think I wanted to have a Sister Anika Robbins and Brother Thomas Berry respond to the concerns you've raised. We all are men and women that have family members or people we know who've experienced Alzheimer's and disease, and what you're giving us is tools to manage our lives and our families better. And Anika is a cultural warrior. That's among other descriptions of her, but one who understands the value of cultural sensitivity, cultural awareness, and engaging culture as an asset, not seeing it as a liability. Anika, as you hear this conversation about Alzheimer's and health and healing, how does that really make you think about the work that we are always doing in community to advance our well-being? What do you think?
Right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciated your insights, Dr. Kembing. I was thinking of my time growing up in Lagos, and sometimes when there are folks that, as we say in Black culture in America, they lose their mind, right? And they would call it Ogbanje in Yoruba. So I was looking at those parallels and the needs to be culturally aware. And Dr. Oliver raised an important question, like how do we cater to all the various voices throughout the African diaspora in America? There's a need for it. Would be happy to participate with you. But the thing is, we did an event in December called Wealth and Wellness Summit. And so what you raised in your conversation are some of the things that we were trying to help prepare the community for, which is the financial implications of, discovering these things about members of our families and our communities. We talk about wealth and stacking chips, getting the bag and everything, but we we often don't talk about the barriers to building wealth. And sometimes long-term caregiving, things like Alzheimer's, dementia, these are things that we, as community, we do hold our family. We do keep our elders at home. Part of it's because we have a distrust for the medical institutions, right? And you know, America does not have the greatest history of how folks who are experiencing mental challenges, that we don't have the best history with that. And so we feel like it's safe, ill-equipped as we may be, but we're going to at least love them and feed them, make sure that they are taken care of. So anything that the Anika Foundation can do to help amplify this message, I know that Beverly Probst, she's been sounding the alarm in terms of helping the community become more aware and start to educate ourselves, but also tap into those resources that are not readily available. We often have to dig so deep to find financial resources. And then you touched on the self-care. Many people I know, you know, they're caring for folks and it is draining. And we love folks and we don't like to complain, but we have to put the mask on ourselves in order to continue to help the ones that we love. And we need tools and we need resources and we need to be armed with information. And lastly, I would say we had conversation with Dr. Miriam Roby, alerting the community of what was to come, right? January 1st, which is incredible, immense loss of federal funding. Hospitals are closing, healthcare costs are going up. You may or may not have access to your primary care provider or insurance and things like that. And so what we're trying to help people to understand is that you're going to have to conserve your coins because you may have to use your money in a way that you have not previously anticipated, because you may have to care for your health care and other unforeseen circumstances, right? And so we often don't think about Alzheimer's, dementia, you know, or just an accident. You could have suffered a bad accident and be, you know, disabled. We don't think about and plan towards those things until they happen. And in which case you're in it, you're overwhelmed. And so I think, Brother Al, as per usual, thank you for bringing these conversations to light, because it's so easy to be blindsided by these real world things. And unfortunately, under this current regime, we're going to have to fend for ourselves in more ways than one, as I'm sure we're going to get into the conversation down the line here. Thank you for the space.
Sure, thank you. Well, Thomas Berry,
Can
same
I add
thing.
one last thing? Sorry, one of the resources that is available is that we're actually having a conference on the 21st of February at North Point Wellness that is hosted by the African American Child Wellness Institute. And we're going to have a lot of resource partners. We're going to be tabling at that event so people can come out and get some resources right there. So
There we go. Thomas Berry, react if you would. You know, you and I always talk, we meet over the conversation about the movement, you know, what we got to do, how we going to throw down. Right. But our health has got to be centered in that, and we don't say it enough. We don't talk about it enough. What do you think? And how does this conversation affect you, and how you and I can infuse this consciousness into our daily work? I work for liberation and freedom for our people. What do you think?
So two things. First thing is, Dr. Manka, man, I'm proud of you. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing. We need more people like you. I am developing a platform that's going to be launched in the second quarter, where people can go on and actually get home remedies and things that they can do to make sure that their health is where it needs to be as these government cutbacks happen. A lot of times in our community, we talk about the problems, but we don't talk about ways to remedy the problems. We got a lot of these remedies already inside of our own kitchen, and we also have professionals that could also talk to a lot of our loved ones across the country. And it's a cheap platform. It's just $10 a year. It has a bevy of remedies, a bevy of different exercises that you can do, diet plans, etc., from yoga to meditation to you just name it. It's all on there for every home remedy you could think about. The second thing is, we were talking a lot about
what you're saying. You're talking about how we have to infuse into all of our work self-care, being
Self-care.
aware and having the tools on us, at our fingertips that we can keep ourselves mindfully plugged into our individual and our family and community health, and make that kind of our business, not surrender that to other institutions that may have all kinds of different motives for managing us, primarily money.
Yeah,
Right?
well, we have to do it, and we have to do it in an inexpensive way that it doesn't outprice our people, because with the insurance premiums going up, our people are being outpriced out of health, and there has been no backup plan that we have devised as a collective. So this is like kind of my old of saying, hey, listen, when I was sick, I used to go to my grandmother who was a nurse, and she would always nurse me back to health, and then I would go back home. And in this aspect, we're trying to create that virtual grandmother where we would bring on doctors, we would bring on nurses, we would bring on therapists, and they would always give, weekly advice about whatever's going on, whatever the ailment may be at the time, whether it's respiratory or whatever. They would talk directly to those people who would plug in, and it's just $10 a year. You pay $10 a year, you get access to all of these things. We plug you into the stores that are closest to your home that give you healthier food and things of that nature. But I do want to say this, because we're talking a lot about our elders. We're not talking about early onset dementia that are a lot of the people who are supposed to be in the fight will experience because of the smartphones and this addiction to dopamine from always posting on social media and these smartphones. And that is a growing issue inside of America right now with the smartphones, with people always putting their head down and lifting their head up to respond to the text or respond to these Facebook posts, because we're over inundating each other with this thing called dopamine, which are likes, hearts, and comments. So I wanted to ask Dr. Manka, are you seeing some of those things as well?
So definitely early onset dementia, it's critical to begin to think about for our community, because as Black persons, we have a higher risk of Alzheimer's related dementia, and that is one of them that happens early on. And again, we need to do the work to prevent it. And there's a whole slew of interventions: exercising, eating healthy, sleeping well, all of those things. And like you mentioned, technology is one of those things that really affects sleep. For many people, we sleep with our phones beside us, and the beeping just keeps waking people up. So you're not getting full sleep cycle, or you're not even sleeping because you're on the phone, either watching or doing something. So technology and sleep is something that has been talked about a lot, and sleep is a risk factor for dementia. So all of those risk factors are implicated in many of the things that kind of happen to us. Some of the risk factors: hypertension, diabetes, again, they disproportionately affect Black persons in the US. So it's kind of this cycle where we have the risk factors, we have the condition, and so we just keep going. And we need to break the cycle by really starting early, like you mentioned, to begin to do the work to taking care of ourselves is also preventing dementia. A lot of talk about heart health, is brain health, all of those things that we need to do. We need to start doing them early, because it's very important to protect our brain and our brain health.
So,
Can I
brother,
just chime and say that in parts of, so I'm glad you brought up the hypertension connection, right? Because sleep, lack of sleep is linked to high blood pressure and heart disease. And so having these kind of intersectional conversations that show how all these things are interconnected is critically important. And America should be paying attention, because several countries around the world are banning social media for youth and teenagers. I know of at least 4 countries that have done so. But even the creators of AI and things are now like, don't do it. Help me out, Thomas. The guy that started Apple, he wouldn't allow his own children.
Not in his home. He said, you won't have no iPhone in my house.
Yeah. So I think that
Steve Jobs is the one.
Steve Jobs.
Thank you. Yes.
Steve Jobs, Bill Gates too. None of these tech, Google, Peter Thiel, whatever you go through these names, they do not allow their family or their children to use the devices that they are selling to the rest of the public.
Let me go to the youngest person in the room right now. I'm going to presume he's the youngest. I'm just reading ages. Brother Cortez Rice. And Cortez, thank you for being here, man. And we're going to keep morphing this conversation into, it's all the same conversation to me. How do we protect and grow, equity, access, power, and the ability to create a humane and balanced world? And that's what we all are working for. But Brother Cortez, you lead the Junior Achievers Foundation. How does this conversation sit with you as a young person in a leadership role in the community?
It hits, very, very much so at home. Obviously, my son, I created and started the Junior Achievers Foundation because my son Jamari Rice was pewed at high school at the age of 15, February 1st, 2022, in Richfield. So I created the foundation to inspire other children to continue to play sports and work out their body, work out their mind, giving out scholarships to kids that's on the A and B honor roll, and also working with state legislators right now as far as creating the Jamari Rice law, which increases harsher penalties for school grounds and school bus violence, and added metal detectors at all exits and entrances of the buildings to protect our kids. And then with Minnesota having the funds, because my son was pewed at school, is to give the proper training for our educators when these type of situations happen. So just continuing to uplift our children. I'm 36 years old, so I might be the youngest in here, and I thank y'all for allowing me to be on this platform as well. But as 36 years old, my time is almost up. I'm looking for the generation to come after us and to continue to support the generation to come after us. We literally all they have, and right now with everything going on, it's so much hatred that's spilled out into this world. Just loving on our kids and uplifting our kids and telling them that you could be anything in this world that you want to put your mind to. So exactly, like uh, the doc was saying, was as far as getting them the nice or the allotted time that a body needs to even sleep to be able to function on a day-to-day base, and keep up the good grades. So like I said, I'm just here to uplift our communities, and making sure that our kids have a successful rate than we did and have a greater path than we did.
So this weekend, a number of people are gathering from around the country and here to be in conversation about leadership and what we do in this environment. And let me ask the three of you to give your assessment of where we are. And the assessment I'm looking for acknowledges that the city and the country right now are particularly attuned to the consequences of the federal incursion. What I call it, the invasion. They invaded Minneapolis, they invaded Caracas, and they're poised to invade other places as well. We're in a dangerous time. And you may have seen the rage this morning where President Trump has posted images, memes, portraying former President Barack Obama and Michelle Obama as apes, as monkeys. So that's viral now. And it's not that it hadn't been out there already in the MAGA sphere, but here it's coming from the President of the United States of America. And as it is coming from that perch, from that platform, it seeks to, we believe, normalize the sense of the ability to dehumanize Black and brown people. And to the degree that you dehumanize them, you enable, empower sick white people to visit death, harm, displacement, discomfort, their angst, their anxiety on our people, and to do it with a sense of impunity. Thomas Berry, what are you thinking? Am I on the right track in describing this?
Well, you are, but I told you a few years ago on your platform that Black folks made the biggest mistake of making the conversation about every ism except racism. We talk about everything around the globe. We fought with each other for the last 7 years, this internal beef between Black men and Black women. over leadership. And we talked about patriarchy, but we never talked about the white male patriarchy. That's really the whole sentence, not patriarchy, white male patriarchy. Black man ain't never necessarily ran the household. The wife has always kind of ran the house. We just like to have the head position. And so now we're seeing exactly what it's like to have this white supremacist inside of the White House. People are mistaken when they hear these folks say they are Christian nationalists. They do not believe in Jesus. I want to say that again. You run up into their church, they don't serve the same God you serve. And if you go and study what they are practicing, you would understand they don't believe what you believe. And you would know that you are not going to, there is no lighter side to them that you are going to appease to.
Mm.
What this man did with this video, and keep in mind how he got his start for the president run. Remember, it was him coming down the elevator trying to delegitimize Barack Obama as a non-American born Kenyan president. Remember, that was him who started that track. He was trying to denaturalize President Obama at that point. One of the things that most people in our community are not talking about, what was happening here in Minnesota, is the denaturalization process. And I don't see us talk about it enough because there is a Minnesota Senator, Tom Emmer. He is pushing a bill for denaturalization. What does that mean?
Yep.
You could be an American-born citizen, and they can take away your citizenship if they feel like you have committed the right crime. So if you killed someone, if you raped someone, if you did some type of fraud, even though you are an American citizen, they want to put in a bill to take that away. Now, I am only...
does that apply to naturalized Americans or to...
across the board.
Yep.
Across the board.
So that flies in the face of the argument we hear a lot of people saying, they can't deport me. I ain't got to worry about ICE because they just after, the Mexicans and the Asians and the Africans, the Haitians, but I'm a native born and I cannot be, deported. I tell them, look, sister, brother, examine this. You are here because you were imported. And if they could fix their mind to import you, the language tells you that they have the capacity to deport you the same way they imported you, and we know that they will. They've proven that. Go ahead, brother.
Well, they're the ones who were telling us in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and we're talking people fresh off the boat, white folks fresh off the boat, were telling us to go back to Africa.
Yep.
I think a lot of people have forgotten white folks telling African Americans, go back to Africa. That would be spray painted on your home, spray painted on your garage, spray painted on your car. There is a major disconnect from black folks today. And I will say this is another issue. That's why I'm glad we had Dr. Manka on. We have a lot of sick people in our community who have access to social media platforms. They need to take their medicine if they think that they are in cahoots with these white folks. If you think when you go get that rope that they're going to lynch somebody else, you'll be surprised when you may be the person hanging on the other side of that rope.
I think it's important to point out.
Dropped jewels. Sorry.
I think it's important to point out also that this is also a threat to women. Part of that bill would also, if you had a name change and some other, so if you got married, and as you do when you get married, you adopt the name of your husband, that would be a barrier to voting under this proposed bill. So there are lots of things, but what we're faced with right now is an occupation in Minnesota. But I'm going to take us a step back even further. What we are dealing with is it's othering, right? The way that the last election went down, it was really about promoting anti-Blackness. It was about proximity to whiteness. When we look at the voter election results, 59% of white men voted this way. 53% of white women voted the way they did. 24% of Black men voted. Latino men, 47%, 38%. It is said that 25% of the vote in the Cedar Riverside, which is predominantly Somali, overwhelmingly voted in support of Trump. We know that there are groups called Somali for Trump, Latinos for Trump. And so what I wanted to highlight is, because people have been asking, well, where are Black folks in this struggle? Black folks is where we've always been. This is not new to us. We are accustomed to this. Our message is really that we need to be turning inwards to be insulating, fortifying, sustaining our families, right? We know, people say, well, it's not just the Latino fight or immigrant fight. We know that. We've been, as we say, we've been known that. And so we have we need to make sure that we will be able to survive economically, because something that I've been saying is the bottom hasn't dropped. This is just the beginning. Project 2025 was a 900-page document. We're just scratching the surface right now. So unity is important, but it also, Black people are often expected to suspend our feelings and suspend our own personal response to trauma, to racism and oppression in order to accommodate others. We're expected now to come and lend support and join this fight. But we, as Black women say, we've been told y'all. We told everybody what this was. This man said who he was, right? And so, but people voted because they thought it was going to be a vote against Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just the honest to goodness truth. And unless and until we continue to operate in truth and not have people try to sugarcoat or censor us or tell us how to feel or how to believe or how to respond, we're going to always find ourselves in these situations. And so that's why I think it's great what Kenya is doing, is bringing, authentic Black leadership to the fore. Because a lot of us aren't really we're not really searching for limelight. We've been doing the work on the ground for many years. The Anika Foundation, celebrating 18 years, Black Votes Matter Minnesota, was established when Jamar Clark was killed in 2015, because we recognized the importance of increasing Black voter turnout. And to that end, if more of us had showed up at the polls, would we be experiencing something very different? So we like to sugarcoat a lot and we like to gloss over, but we have to look at the hard truths. I mean, Thomas mentioned, gaps in leadership in our community. And we have young voices, we have seasoned voices, and then we have those of us who are Gen X. All of those voices need to come together, and we need to map out strategies that transcend far beyond the current reality, right? Because listen, we brought in Sean Rochester, he's the author of The Black Tax, and he mentioned that the things that we are experiencing right now, not only will we be feeling those impacts for the next 3 years, but for the next 40 years. Everything that is happening now has generational impact, affecting housing, employment, other economic opportunities, healthcare, all the things that we've been talking about. All of this stuff does not operate in a vacuum. And so we need to draw close together. We need to leverage and identify resources, leadership, and figure out who's got what lane, and then figure out a way to move forward past, any kind of differences. This is bigger than any one person. Mm-hmm. And that's why we need all hands on deck at this time to figure out our way forward, because it's ICE today, but it's going to be something else tomorrow.
It'll be the Army tomorrow. It'll be the Army, the National Guard, and it'll be us getting our addresses changed to the mini
concentration
camps.
Yes.
Yeah, that they're building around the country.
Yes.
And let's do something about it, and the thing we got to do immediately, obviously, is continue, as you say, Anika, to organize, and make sure we turn out at the ballot box in November and make sure that there is an election in November, because our president seems to be suggesting that there's no need, or if there is one, he wants
People
it
should
controlled
be
by
very
the
afraid.
Republican Party. We should be afraid.
Yeah.
I see.
I agree with that as well, and I'm out there boots the ground, and I've been out there for years now, but especially during these trying times right now, the message that I continue to push out there, even as myself, as a black man, I'm scared for my life. They've been killing us and harming us for over 400 years, and the fact that they're doing this to our white brothers and sisters now. It's literally time to wake up for the other races right now, that we, like you said, we unite. It's so ugly. And just to touch on Brother Al's subject, as far as the picture that was put out there by the president, we've seen the hatred before, with the birth of the nation.
Yep.
And I think it's disgusting. It's a smack in the face. I've seen some big platforms say, don't even share the picture.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? Don't share the picture, because that's what they want. You know what I mean? And exactly like with the situation that's going on out here on a daily basis, they, as far as peaceful protesters, they want us to tear up our city, but we have not done that. So, and the fact that we're using our voices and pots and pans to bang on pots and pans, you know what I mean? It's still a tactic of peacefully protesting, but yet they continue to violate our constitutional rights. But the hatred that they're spilling out of the White House is literally bluntly right in your face. Like, even seeing, I shared something on my Facebook where the president was like, he'd never read the Bible in his life, but yet he had his hand on the Bible, swearing in as a president. Like, is people not really seeing what's going on? And for those that were the mega Trump supporters or the white nationalist Christians, it's like, does that not make y'all angry now? You know what I mean? Like, we've been telling y'all this for years and years now, that he's never been for the people. If you're not a white nationalist, a KKK, or a mega Trump supporter, just because you're white, that don't mean he cares about you. He doesn't stand in solidarity with you. You know what I mean? And so right now is the time, and it always has been the time that we stick together and unify. I remember, even with the George Floyd movement, that we were telling our brothers and sisters of a different race to be in the front line, and they were willing to be in the front line and take those hits for us. You know what I mean? So again, we just got to continue to unify and build, or like she said, organize, strategize, and execute on these plans that we have in our community. And in order to see the change, we have to become the change that we want to see at the same time, though.
That's right.
We're joined by Sister Kenya McKnight Ahad. She has curated this part of the program. We had great conversations yesterday and day before, and I'm thankful for her attentiveness and her leadership and her fierceness. I also want to acknowledge Naval Noor, put a couple of posts in the chat, Romans 12:19. Naval, if you want to, I'll bring you on screen, and you can tell us what that means. I don't know that chapter, that verse, so you must have something important to say about that. Let me put you up here real quick. So
she's one of our dear sisters.
For her, all right. And her leadership and her fierceness. Also want to acknowledge Naval Noor. Put a couple of somehow I'm getting a loop in the chat. Somebody's 19. Naval, if you want to, I'll bring you on screen.
She just got to mute a little bit.
Okay. Let me start with you though. So
One of our dear sisters.
I am not sure why we're getting the mute. Somebody has to mute. Maybe everybody mute right now except for Kenya. I also want to acknowledge everybody mute except for Kenya. Somehow I'm getting a loop.
Sorry, we get some. Let me
Jared, can you
hold on, let me fix this because we're getting
okay. And can you take a minute and talk about what's happening this weekend? Thank you so much.
I think she had another screen going.
Well, we have a lot going on over here,
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
There we go. Are we better now?
Yeah.
I mean, basically talking about hate and all these things, and there's a lot going on. I mean, I'm on my way to the Capitol tomorrow, so I can paint better pictures. I'll be talking about Obama and them monkeys. I would never dare post that, but as an artist, my position is to
Me too.
paint them as kings and queens as they are to us. So that will be going on. So to be in defense of that, we're not going to do that. Tomorrow at the Capitol, I just say, hey, bring your pots and pans. We're just going to do a public roast. Jake Lane want to keep coming up here. We can't keep.
We lost her. Can you jump in?
There
She's
she
back. She's back. Go ahead.
There we go. Sorry. We also don't need people coming and trying
this.
to save somebody. Don't come save this man tomorrow. If y'all coming to the Capitol, and I'm not going to even say his name. Don't come to the Capitol tomorrow to save white supremacy. That's the problem. You the problem. We're going to find somebody for you. We're going to put you in the corner. Don't come up here tomorrow. But you can come up here tomorrow for a public roast. So, yeah, I'm on both sides. So I will be there. But I'll be there painting in the most beautiful way possible. But, yeah, don't be trying to deface our Black queens and queens. I'm not going for the circus. I'm not for it. So I got y'all. It's all good.
What was that Romans 12:19? What was that Romans 12:19 that you was referring to?
Do we have our Bibles? Hold on, let me go get the Bible.
All right. All right.
Let me go pull the page.
And Kenya, I want you to give details about tomorrow, what we're going to be doing. Invite people to show up at the several opportunities.
Yeah.
Go
Looks
ahead,
like
start.
this was an
We'll come back to-
amazing,
we'll come back to
amazing
those all in a minute.
gathering of leaders and conversations.
This is a
Sorry,
great
I was
conversation.
working over here doing trainings and all the things. But I'm really honored that you all could join. Thank you so much. I know you're busy with all the work that you're doing, holding space and taking care of people. So thank you for taking this moment. I think it's always important for us to collaborate intellectually, spiritually, and just culturally, and just how we need to build and get information and insights and inspiration, right, out to our community, because they need to hear from us in these ways so that people know how to think, and how to understand, like how to deal with what's happening every day. That picture, I just seen that like an hour ago. I was like, what? And so, we really got to make sure we're diligent and vigilant here with each other. We're very, very honored to have, Brother Malik, Zulu, Shabazz, who's coming here to Minnesota. I believe some of them are already here. And a whole nation of people from the East Coast, the West Coast, all over, people from the Young Lions, from the Black Panthers, from, just the national lawyers for Black justice, etc. Just the movement of Black people, coming here to also help expand on the movement that we have here locally, right? To stand strongly, like, we are with representation, right? We're not just, a quiet people. We've been the movement the whole time. And so for us, this is just a stance, we'll keep taking them every day, but tomorrow's going to be a different collective stance where 12 o'clock we'll be meeting up at the state capitol, right? White supremacy ain't got no place here. We'll be there. 12
Black
o'clock.
History Month too. Come on, man.
That's right. You come in kicking down. We'll be there tomorrow, 12 o'clock. We hope that you come in, and in that, it's about our leadership, right? Even as politicians, our political, we need to be running for office, taking up space,
taking up space. We need to replace. We need to beyond taking up space. The thing is that we get complacent, like, some George Floyd, okay, that happened. Next, no, we need to continue to stay on it.
And we
every day. Why we stop fighting? Why do we stop?
We
fighting?
haven't. We just be quiet in Minnesota.
Not us, but there's a lot of people who have.
Yeah. We in the corner. We just come on out the corner.
This shouldn't even have happened. That's where I feel. This shouldn't have happened. If we had Democratic Party, we have nothing but to blame ourselves to the positions that we are in right now. And that's one thing I have to be accountable, because we are all one people, right? United. We shouldn't be in this position at all.
Well, I tell you what, it's our job to get up out of it right now. And so, and that's part of where we at. And so, listen, Trump only lost Minnesota by 150,000 votes. I want to put that in perspective. All right. Mm-hmm. And he won 70% of the country. So let's keep that in perspective. So half of the people out there protesting voted for him, just an FYI. But
correct. Exactly.
Here's the thing, where we are now, right? Is we've got to be able to come together in mind and all of that in a different way right now and beyond tomorrow. right?
Yes.
Beyond Malik Nim,
Beyond
and
tomorrow.
continue this collectively more strategically as we have. But let me just tell you about the events that Mr. Malik has put together that he's collaborating with a lot of us local leaders. We're all welcome to join. I hope as many of us can come out as possible. So tomorrow at 12, we'll be at the state capitol, like 12 to 2:30. Stay as long as you want, but we're there to make a statement and to speak. And I know he's working with Brother Jonathan Mason, I think that's his last name, but he'll be part of that. But we're all welcome to be there. We'll be at the square. So let's meet up at the square, George Floyd Square.
Don't put gentlemen in the front line in front of Jake Lang. Tell him to go and handle our boy right there.
Yeah, he ain't pulling up at the square. He gonna get squared up at the square.
Tell him go ahead, we put him in the ring.
The square, you gonna have a holler, bro.
Tell him we put him in the ring. Tell him let's go.
But we will be at the square doing a Know Your Rights training. So you know what to do when ICE, pulls you over, or the police in general, police brutality, etc. So please show up at the George Floyd Square. We'll be at Brother King Demetrius space, the Listen to Us studio at 3730 Chicago Avenue South, right there on 38th in Chicago, 37th. So please come. And then from 5 to 10, we're going to serve food, and we'll have a great panel, which you've met many of the panelists today. There's going to be a combination of local and national leaders at the Thor building that's on Penn and Plymouth from 5 to 10. So we're there all night building. And so you've heard from some of the panelists today, but we're going to be joined by Brother Rashid, who's leading the national reparations for Black people in across the country. You're going to hear from Elder Mojo, right, who's a part of the Black Panther Party, Brother Malik Shabazz, Sister Anika Robbins, Brother Thomas Berry, Cortez Wright, myself. There'll be several others, Brother Rod Adams, and Antonio Williams. And so a variety of folks who are doing amazing work here locally, and how we think and build around the national platform of Black progress, Black success, Black power, Black life, and what that looks like for us, not only now, but in the future. So I'm excited for that, and I hope that you can come out and join us.
Let me ask us to go around before we close with a thought.
Was I yelling? Sorry.
All of you have.
You sound good. You sound joyful.
And that is that what we have to do is not fixate on the evil and the oppression. Their intention, ultimately, that's irrelevant. They're being themselves. What we simply have to do is understand the power of being ourselves. And if we fully sit inside our own cultural and humane sensibility, we will begin to create processes and relationships that reflect the best of what human beings can do and be. Thomas Berry, where do we go from here? How do we build a future in which we win, and in which our winning probably redefines what winning means?
Well, I think we're in a good spot, because I think everything, the pseudo borders that we put up amongst ourselves have been stripped down, and that's what white supremacy do. It makes you understand that it's you versus them, and you have to be able to fight. So I think we're in a good position. What I do warn our people about, though, is don't fall into the sleep that white folks gonna do it for us. We thought that in the 70s with the hippies. As soon as they got those people out of power, they became the same oppressors as before. So them being out, they don't fight the fight for us. We have to fight the fight for us.
The biggest fraud in America.
They're just fighting to be the oppressor. And we have to fight to make sure that we get the liberty that we're looking for.
Dr. Williams, what is it? I talked to a person yesterday who is a white person who told me she was concerned about the amount of vitriol and racist hatred spewing from young white people. That back in the day, we thought that if we just got rid of those old segregationists and showed them the power of love, that the new generation was not infected with the same racism. But what we're discovering, and this is in the words of the white lady I spoke to yesterday, is that there is a crop of young white people that are frightening to her. And so I'm looking at that in the lens of what happened to the world in 1930s with this European sickness, right? That was called fascism, that attempted to destroy that part of the world. And we were all collateral damage. But we're in the center of it now. Kenya, Anika, flow on that for me.
I'm sorry, I thought you asked Dr. Oliver, but
I think everybody's going to get to it. Yeah.
okay. Yes, I think what you're saying is true, and something for me as a Gen X person, I think that we believed largely growing up in the 90s, right? That okay, well, Rosa Parks, she sat in the front of the bus. Martin marched. I think there was a certain degree of complacency, as Naval had mentioned. Not necessarily complacency, but just believing that we had crossed over.
Mm-hmm.
And that is simply not the case. As Gen Z calls it, post-racial. There is nothing post-racial about what's going on right now. This young crop have learned from their grandparents and their parents, right? We when the phrase political correctness was coined in the 90s, right? A lot of stuff got swept underneath that, but also underneath that, a lot of that undercover racism was spewing, and people smile. I have a meme that says, the pretense is ending. That's what's happening. America is in a place where the pretense of liking and loving and tolerating each other, that is over. And we must really come to terms and face each other where we are, who we are in this moment. We're at a crossroads, and we know that a lot of this is driven by demographics, right? We know that there will be, by whatever year now, majority Black and brown nation. And that's really what's driving a lot of this. This is like the white man's last stance, so to speak, right? And so people are afraid of lower birth rates and all those things in the European society. And yet between Africans, African Americans, Latinos, everybody, birth rates are going up. So this is survival. That's what this stage is called. And we have to figure out what that looks like, right? Right now, folks who seem to have the most resources, who are hoarding the resources, but that's not to say that the Black community is, deficient in resources. What Malcolm X says is that we are out organized. And so that's why what Kenya is doing, what all of us have been doing, pulling together, educating, mobilizing, it's important. Because it's not going to stop, right? It's not going to stop. And so we have to we have to be strategic. We can't always respond through emotion. We have to leverage the skills, talent, and expertise of everybody. Because you can't do it by yourself, okay? You fraternity, sorority, y'all not going to fight this on your own, right? If your clique, your crew, your squad, you're not going to be able to fight this on your own. This is many generations in the making. They've been aware and had this fear. We was just happy to be able to integrate, right? But where has don't get me started, Mr. McFarlane.
That's right. Dr. Manka, jump in whenever you want to. I'm looking to you as a research scientist, right? And how do we apply the tools that you have been trained for and that we have developed in our variety of disciplines? How do we bring our best knowledge and confidence to reorganizing, reorienting, and getting different results that reflect and dignify our sensibility and affirm our humanity, our deity? What do you think?
So I think a couple of things. History keeps records, so we need to do the work to begin to keep record. And then in thinking about what is happening now and recognizing that we started talking about dementia, everything that is happening now is traumatic, is stressful, and that is causing, if you're thinking about the stress response cycle, so people are continuously stressed. And if you're continuously stressed, you're at risk for many, many medical conditions, heart problems. And so it's important that we are also doing the work. I know one of our sisters wrote a book called Restless Resistance. It's very, very important that we are if even if it's 5 minutes, you're pausing to ensure that you're checking in with yourself and making sure that you're still taking care of yourself, because we have to go far. And if we have to go far, we need to ensure that our pace is matching up with our strength and capabilities. And so it's doing that work to ensure that we're staying well and healthy so we can go the long term and not burn out when the fight is not over. Yeah.
And taking
So-
care of the children. I'm sorry, Kenny and I were talking about that. You know, this, even though you may not be the target of this ICE invasion, this is still having an impact on our communities, and in particular, our young ones. You know, schools are closing. This is very reminiscent of COVID, right? And our communities are still trying to recover achievement rates, you know, mental, emotional response. For me personally, this has been triggering, right? For many of us, it is triggering to be experiencing this outlash of violence. This is violence. This is white violence, white government sanctioned violence on our communities. So even if you're not directly impacted, as a human, you cannot not be affected by it, because this goes against everything human. And so seeing a 5-year-old child, regardless of his race, color, creed, being separated, I immediately was concerned for the pregnant mother and the potential impact on the unborn child. I'd mentioned about birth rates earlier. All this stress that Dr. Kimbang has mentioned, it does have generational effect. Many of us are still carrying the trauma from our enslaved ancestors. It's the reason why we respond the way we do sometimes. It's very, I forget the word, but it's in our veins. And so, and the fight is also in our veins, but we have to protect the emotional, the mental health and well-being of our children and our families. And so we need to protect them. We need to, we're talking about psychological safety right now. There's a need for that. And many of us don't have tools. Some of us do. Talk about yoga and meditation and communing with each other. But when I mentioned about the long-term impacts earlier, this is just but one example of that, and ways that our community needs to be thinking about how we can protect and cover each other.
And I'll just say one word and a couple words that will deal with, you know, that psychological piece is, we have to understand that he who controls the image controls the reality. And so if I can tell you everything, if I can tell you who you are, then I can control everything about you. White supremacy is a mental illness. It is not only abnormal, it is outrageous. And I think that normalizing us as, you know, humans, as people who exist, who deserve to exist, normalizing the way we talk, the way we think, the way we move, and everything we do is not a response to racism, right? It's not a response to trauma. Like I think everyone will traumatize us. This is who we are. Okay. And this is how we've moved, you know, the entire time. Everything isn't a reaction or response to trauma. This is exactly what we need to be doing. And part of how we need to be thinking is part of how we offset white supremacy. Who is going to tell us? The people who built this country, the people who spent hundreds of years dealing with this white man on this land, not somewhere else, right here. Don't nobody know him better than me. I know this person, and we know exactly what to do to deal with him. And one of the things is to be diligent in who we are, what's important to us, our priorities, our strategies, and move. And everybody ain't going to be safe in that. Some of us are here for the sacrifice. You need to know what your role is, what you doing, what's your lane, all right? Because everybody ain't doing the same thing. Some of us are willing to die on the front line. Some of us got to do this behind there. We've always had multiple roles that we played, and none of that is something that we can take off the table at this point. You got to be willing to play your role, but understand what it is, because it's all necessary right now, and nothing's off the table. It shouldn't be. It never has been. And I don't know why we think it's a part of how we need to be thinking and talking right now. We need to understand that. Like, this isn't about, we're militant. This is life. It's life or death. Either you're going to figure out what it means to live, or you're going to die for nothing. You got to figure it out. That's our job. What's important to us? We're responsible for our life. We always have been. White people ain't gave us nothing. Everything we have, we built. Plus the stuff that they benefiting from. We ain't had no handouts. Yeah, I care about the 5-year-old, but I also care about Amir Lockett, right? Also care about Tamir Rice. I can give you millions of Black children whose blood been spilt on this damn earth, and ain't nobody said a word. I care about those 100 Black men that was taken off the street a year ago. We don't even understand all the charges and even know if they're correct.
It wasn't correct. They were not correct.
And so I care about all of that. And we've got to have some focus and attention to all of that. What is being militant? If I'm speaking out, talking the truth, and caring about us means I'm militant, then sign me up. That's what it is. You've got to be not scared to stand in this. We're in Minnesota, so this is this indirect Norwegian white culture where, talking like this is fearful. Moving like this means that somebody belongs to a military group or the way that they framed who we are. No, this is somebody who cares.
We're instigators.
Yeah. Go ahead, sis, because I'm just,
Well, I'm tired of the Wiggers in the White House. I will say it, Wiggers, whatever y'all want to call them. They the new niggas. I don't care what nobody think or say because they say everything. It's a figure of speech. This is my art. So if you don't like it, that's too bad. I paint pictures and I write. Secondly, we are tired.
I had a question for you, Novell. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you. So it's February 6th.
Yes, sir.
21-26.
Yes, sir.
21-26. And we won. Victory was imminent and inevitable. And we won. Describe your neighborhood. What do you see out your window today? February 6th, 21-26.
What do I see about my neighborhood today? Like straight up descriptions. People with whistles and
what's the world? What world?
What's
are we
the world?
living
The
in?
world?
Yeah.
He said 100 years.
100 years from now.
We won.
100 years from now. You talking about the future? We
Yes.
won. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, I'm like,
Yes.
now? I'm like, oh.
Yeah, 21-26.
21-26.
And I'm talking to you because you're the artist and you see.
He said you're the artist. 21-26. 100 years from now, we've won. Yes, the fight will never be over because I'm like, it's going to continue. I mean, it's capitalism that's always going to stay strong, and they're always looking to hold people in a place, in a position. So 100 years from now, we're going to be able to be the blueprint for everybody else. So we need to lay that out, other ways for them to build. So when they are in this situation, so they know that, hey, we got you. So the plan is to continue, not for people to fall back or get comfortable. The plan is to keep growing. So
I'll answer that question.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Go ahead.
100 years from now, if we won, we would see less technology and more people intertwining with each other. If you go back and study ancient history, the Egyptians were more advanced technology than ever before. But ask what happened to that technology and what happened to those people. And that's something that we don't necessarily talk about because we always have this forward lens because we think from the prism of white folks. We speak their language, we take their education, and then we take on their mannerisms. That's why they say words and spells. But if we take 100 years from now, what we would be doing would be more intertwined as a community. And you would probably see less folks going by these classifications of race, which is a white intervention here in America. So if we won, racism would be all for dead and gone 100 years from now. And you would see more people living in harmony because they wouldn't have this idea of white supremacy / capitalism to contend with. That's what victory would look like. We probably would be speaking multiple languages besides English because we would be truly living amongst each other, learning and intermingling compared to what we have now. Where we do live amongst each other, but we're not always interchanging culture, language, things of that nature.
Dr. Williams, jump in. I'm going to have you close us out. Anika, you jump in to close us out as well. But Dr. Williams, you first.
Well, one of the things that I have thought about, so I have a son that's 35. And so he looks at what's happening now, and he doesn't have the perspective of my years.
Mm.
And for me, I didn't have the perspective of my dad's years or my grandma's years. But we should do the same thing that we've been doing. You know, first of all, not be afraid to be able to still march on. There are people who are leaders, who are inventors, who are spiritual leaders. You know, I get as much satisfaction from hearing the wisdom of Martin Luther King now as I did when I was younger, except maybe I appreciate it more. And it's more true for me now than it was when I was younger, because I couldn't appreciate all the depth of it as I can now. So, you know, I just tell them to keep doing what you're doing. And then to reflect, I really appreciate things on social media where it does sort of tell you about our history and who were leaders and who contributed things. We've always been that. But to not forget it, and then to keep doing what we've been doing, we'll be okay.
Let me throw something in. Is everybody okay hanging out a little bit longer? I mean, I'm past my hour, but I'm having a good time. And so if you okay, I'm okay. We'll keep talking. Yeah. And so 2 things on my mind a lot lately, among the things. One is I'm so impressed with what is happening, to the degree that I understand it, in the Sahelian states, the Burkina Faso, Niger, and what's the third one?
Mali. Yes.
And right now, under the direction in Burkina Faso of Ibrahim Traoré, that is one more effort to restate the terms of engagement between African people and the rest of the world, particularly the imperial, colonist, neo-colonist, the extractors who have set themselves on the vein of African wealth. That wealth being both material, mineral, and human wealth. And they've been extracting that for 500 years, right? And so Captain Traoré and that group of new politicians in Africa, from my understanding, and I could be wrong, I could be idealistic, so if I am, bear with me. They are intentionally taking the responsibility of resetting the relationship. We're in the world, but we're no longer supplicants at the altar of white privilege, white power, white supremacy. You just a human being, and truth be told, we now recognize you've been robbing us for 500 years, and you're trying to still rob us by keep creating division and deception among us that keep us disorganized while you continue to rob and kill. That's one. Second piece is that I'm impressed with Anika and technology, Brother Barry, the emergence of this young cat named IShowSpeed. Anybody up on him? IShowSpeed?
Speedy, yeah. Yep.
He just came off of this 20-nation tour in Africa. I've been watching it on YouTube. This guy's phenomenal in that he's 21 years old and has 50 million followers, 50 million subscribers on social media. And so 2 things, the danger of social media, but what if we use it and innovate and do something different with it? And what he's done differently is showed up in traditional African cultural communities and demonstrated almost a non-verbal, a visceral connection with young people by the thousands who coming out saying, I love him. They doing things like backflips. They dancing, they trying food, they trying clothes, but it's an appreciation and a love for being African, for being Black. So Thomas Berry, what you think? Anika, what you think?
So I love Speedy and I love what he's doing, because I think he's taking the number one export of America, which is Black culture, and he's taking it around the world, and he's tying that string throughout the diaspora. So I love that aspect of it. I think what's going on right now in the continent with some of these young brothers and sisters who are leading behind the scenes as well as up front is that they are trying to do a new reawakening. And I think that that's what Gaddafi was trying to do before he was murdered. I think that they are trying to get the boot up off their neck. And what we need to do in the States from this aspect is help, not hurt. That's what the current president is doing when he started bombing Nigeria, what have you. We had no reason to bomb Nigeria, but the fact that they're putting some of his friends out of business and they want to control that aspect of it. But I'll tell you, we are in a great space. And one of the things I used to tell my students when I was teaching is that great people are not something of the past. Every last one of us have the ability to do something great, to do something courageous today. You just got to make the choice. And when people start choosing to do something different versus doing what they see, because I love speed, but my caution with the social media platform is Kai Cenat. And Kai Cenat's speed was right there. But Kai took a step back, and what is he saying? His mental health. Mm-hmm. The idea of dealing with anxiety and dealing with depression based off of this aspect of being online and streaming, not being able to be yourself. Meanwhile, you see Brother Speedy, he said, let me get up out the house and let me move around. Let me do what Black folks do. Let me go touch people. Let me go hug people. Let me go eat the food. Let me go dance with my folks. Let me go sing with my folks. Let me go box and race with my people. And he's doing all of these beautiful things in real time. He's doing this in real time. And there's kids who are throughout the continent of Africa who they may not meet LeBron James, but they did meet Speedy. Mm-hmm. Speedy gave him a hug, and Speedy gave him inspiration. And now that's how you tie that. And I think that that's one of the things that our community, our people must not forget in this country. We are the lost tribe, and we've lost the conversations about who we are. We are the lost tribe. We do have a mission that we're supposed to do. That mission cannot be given to anybody else. It's on us to stand up to this beast. It's on us to defeat white supremacy. If we want to go home back to Africa, we got to slay this beast first before we can go back.
Okay. Sir, listen, thank you for closing us on a kind of a future altruism, right? First, I would say technology is the future. And in fact, biotech is going to be the future. Technology right now appears as the enemy because we don't fully understand it. And there hasn't been any kind of brakes on it, right? We need, like everything, there needs to be some rules of engagement where technology is concerned, because it can be a danger, but it can be a tool. So this generation and coming, they're tapping into that. This young man that you all are talking about, he's paving the way for that. Listen, technology is our birthright innately. Every incredible creation of the last century came from Black women. Okay, GPS, cell phones, microchips, what have you. We are the Orisha. Okay, so we have wisdom. We connect to the stars and the galaxies in the universe. We forget. And this is the reason why you have to put out images of the first Black president, first lady as apes, because you continue to want to dim the light and the brilliance of Blackness, but that simply will not stand. Secondly, I also applaud our leaders in Mali and Burkina Faso and other African countries. They are slowly coming out of the grip of, past colonial, leaders and whatnot. What I love in particular, they're not teaching French in those schools anymore. They are no longer coughing up $500 million in French francs to France to continue to sustain France, who has benefited from the slavery of Africans. Okay, so there are still some who are kind of holding on, some of the older heads, and really we're in a reset, right? We're in a reset, the changing of the guard. And so we're seeing where some of those older folks who still believe that, white or Western leadership is the way, there are things that can be learned, but there is enough Black brilliance in Africa and throughout the diaspora for us to be able to build and sustain ourselves. Okay, there's that. You asked about And our Caribbean nations and African nations are calling for reparations, as we should. But unfortunately, in our community, we're divided on what reparations should be. You know, we should just give it up. So we need to, when we talk about coming together, we need to become of one mind and at least share common ground. This is old to us. Our Hebrew brothers and sisters received reparations. The Japanese did for the concentration camps in the 40s. But for some reason, people do not believe that Black folks are worthy of an apology and for receiving reparations for the harm and the continuous violence that is exacted upon our communities and our children.
But whether people believe it or not, guess what?
Guess what?
Guess
We
what?
coming for it.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Lastly, sir, I believe my wish is to live in a world without these artificial constructs, racism, classism, right? But I do believe realistically, we're going to eventually end up in a predominantly Black and brown world.
We are already. We just don't know about it. Yeah.
Well, because the power doesn't seem to rest with us just yet, but it's coming. It's an eventuality. I also believe that the wealth will be more evenly distributed, access to healthcare. A lot of these disparities that we're seeing is because of that structural racism, those systemic pieces that are keeping it there. But as with more of us populating the earth, I do believe, I hope that we will see more peace and where we're really able to enjoy each other's individual humanity, regardless of race. Because this really is a spiritual fight, a war that we're in. People are throwing up all these things, everything but the kitchen sink. But this is really a time to come back and center into humanity and the love. And I know that sounds really mushy, but that's really our purpose as human beings. Not all this division. This is all smoke screens. So we need to lean into that, and we need to lean into our higher selves. But also what you said, Al, is to stand in our brilliance. We don't have to do this fight and shrink in it. And we don't have to diminish anybody else's shine. In fact, we never have. We've always held out our cloak for other communities to be able to bring strength from us and love and support. This is who we are, but it has been abused, and there must be a reckoning across all the cultures. Everybody is African, and I'll leave it at that.
And I'll leave it at that as well. Thank you all. This has been a wonderful conversation. We'll keep this conversation going. Dr. Manka, thank you so much. Dr. Oliver, as always, thank you. Novel, good to meet you. Great voice, great energy, great vision. Keep up the great work. Brother Barry, as always, and Anika, thank you so much. Take care. I'm Al McFarland. We'll see you next time.